Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. It's not strictly speaking a watering day, it's a water let's catch up day because I'm all behind. I've had my daughter down for the weekend, I've had a coach trip, journey to take my daughter back yesterday. I'm all behind. There's stuff much drier than I would like. But I thought I'd start with a table full of tiddlers. Some doing very well, some not doing so good. This was this was a pot full of kikis I took off a plant that I got rid of because its flower production was once a year, and the blooms, although beautiful, only lasted about 10 days, and it was a beast of a plant. It didn't justify its space, quite honestly. The blooms weren't even fragrant. But I kept some kikis. Now, this is growing new canes that are just about classed as new canes because they're coming out from the base, but it is also growing kikis. Now, I'm just going to let this go for possibly another month or two, then I will sell that plant. Because there's no point in growing it up to be a full-size, blooming-size plant again, because I'm only going to get rid of it. So that's for the off in the not-too-distant future. Another pot full of kikis. Oh, you'll like this. Giant piece of space. If you know me, you know exactly what was there. It was that flipping great Kingianum hybrid thing. Well, I took it into the Orchid Society and somebody bought it from me, so it's gone. But that's kikis from it. You know, they're not to keep, they're to sell on again at some point. That's that one. This was from Rachel, and this is Comet King, so a nobly type. And it is just, I'm pretty confident, yes, if you look at the very base of the plant, it is starting a new cane. So we are going to get some new growth now. Some kikis just stall. They seem to take an age. They're a single growth, effectively, and they've got roots, and they just sit there. But this one is pushing a new growth. That are good. This, it's alive, don't panic. This is the kiki off of my nester, and it has got little tiny roots, and I'm hoping it'll make it, because I'd love another one of them. This is my little Latoria, lovely new growth coming. It's got to come out of that pot. This is Rhodostictum, and pretty confident that's a spike, although it looks like it's turning into a flipping leaf. But, you know, I have no experience with Latorias. I've done homework, yes, but I haven't owned them, so I don't know what they look like as they progress. So we'll see what that one does. This is the Nellie Isla Red Velvet, minus its spikes. Effectively, the flowers were just starting to fade, and for the sake of the plant, the spikes are off. It's a shame, all that lovely, beautiful red is now gone. But we've got two good new growths. And it's more important sometimes to just think of the plant, not the pretty blooms. This is long term. The blooms are never long term, they're short term. And if you sacrifice the plant for the blooms, you'll probably be sorry in the future. Some plants aren't affected too bad, but some are. What's this? This is this is Coleogene. It was Orchids. It's now Nitida, which I like because I can say that. Lovely new growth coming on it. I mean, that's an incredibly young plant. That's a long way off blooming. But one day, and an incredible fragrance, I'm told. I'll let you know. That's one of my little mini phals that lives up with these because it's little. This was the freebie from Speciotic Plants, and now this has got a little story. At the RHS show, the Ritherlington School project had a lovely display, and boy did they have some specimen versions of this, you know, like 4 foot tall and a bush and covered in the beautiful little pink blooms. So now I know what it's supposed to look like. I chatted to the guy, because I know him quite well, who was in charge of the project at the school, and asked how he grows it. And he said eventually we decided, we tried everything with this plant and it was never happy until finally it was put on a mount with some moss, you know, traditional mounting thing. But he said, you know, because the project is effectively manned by school children, somebody was a bit heavy-handed at some point and most of the moss came off of that mount. And at that point, the plant rocketed. Suddenly, it was happy. After all the different things they'd tried, suddenly they had one of their plants taking off like a rocket. So he said, from now on, if we mount them, because it helps moving the plants around if they're on a mount, they just get attached to the mount. No moss, nothing, just bare root. And he said, as you can see, these plants here are just growing like Vandas, bare rooted. But he said they drink a lot. They're very thirsty plants, but they can't seem to stand their roots in things. So I'm not going to be leaving that in there very long. I mean, part of the plants died. There were quite a few little plants went in there. They're not all going to make it, but some are. So I'm going to get that out of there very soon. That's a little Restrepiodes dragonstone. It was a kiki, and it is pushing new roots now, so that's coming on. Now this is interesting. This is Dendrobium Nora Tokunaga. And we have a new growth. I mean, you can see we've got new root growth. You know, that's good, because it's a tiny little plant. I haven't got a clue how big it's supposed to be, but it is a young plant. But new growth, that's what I'm after. Whenever I get a young plant, roots and new growths mean it's going to get going. And it's now got the whole growing season in front of it. So hopefully there'll be more than one new growth and it will push some more. It's like a what's the word, exponential or something or other. It pushes a few roots out and pushes a new growth out. That new growth gives more capacity for photosynthesis and produces more new roots, which makes the plant stronger, which pushes out more new growths with more new roots. And the more it happens, if you see what I mean. It just gets better and better, providing you don't donk it with any sort of culture problems or leave it dry too long or overheat the thing or freeze it. You know, providing you keep it going and it's happy, it really does accelerate at that point. When the roots come out, then the new growth start, progress should be fast. And if it isn't, it's either just a poorly plant or perhaps you need to adjust something, you know, in its care or more likely its environment. I'm sure we all look after our orchids as best we can with the knowledge we've got, but sometimes it's the environment that's knocking them back. And sometimes there's not much you can do about it. So we do what we can. But yeah, table full of tiddlers, and they're watered, so I've got to crack on now. I've got a lot to do today. I'm behind by 2 days on some plants. That's not good. Right, quick update on the bulbophyllums. That's the bulbophyllum phalaenopsis from Archie. New growth coming on. I moved it across to the other side of the pot so that new growth can do something. No viable roots on the bottom of that huge bulb, so it's all down to that little new growth. Come on. Now, this is Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry, and I have to do something with this plant. I'm wasting these aerial roots, and the new growths are starting to push out new roots all over the place now, here and round here. This needs getting into something. This is the only bulb that's grown recently that is capable of blooming. All the others either have or they're old pseudo bulbs up in the pot. But I don't know what's in that pot. And it's a bit of a rambler, so I don't quite know how I'm going to deal with it, but deal with it I must, or I'm going to lose the potential for new growths to do better than they will with just aerial roots. So I've got to do something with this. I might end up having to split it and get it into 2 pots, but whatever I'm going to do, I need to get on with it. I hydrate these roots as often as I can, but they're starting to get brittle. I'm going to lose them if I don't get them in some media soon, so I've got to get on with that one. This is the one that we mounted in Oliver's special mount. New growths haven't stalled, they are moving, That one's opened a leaf, so it's coming on. That is crispy dry at the moment. Outrageous. It's just where I've been away. It's just got behind. Right, the rest of these. This is not like me. Well, that's got no tag. So I'm going to have to do a process of elimination to even find out what the hell that is. It's probably one of the ones I got from Speciotic Plants. If it was Archie's, it would have a tag on it, because I did them all at the same time. So it's not one of Archie's. So it'll be the one, with all the names I've got, it'll be the one that hasn't got a tag. So, you know what I mean. This one, this is, how the hell do I say that? Oh, you can see the label. It's early in the day, I've got a lot to do. But you can see this nice new growth has pushed on well. A lovely leaf on it, and it's now starting to produce its roots. So I've either got to build that pot up and add some more media, or I've got to peg it down. But those new roots need to get into media and not become aerial roots. And once roots become aerial roots, sometimes they're not happy about being poked in media. So that's a now thing. And then this one is Wilbur Chan. That's one of Archie's. Lovely new growth on that. Now, I don't have to worry about that. That's straight in the media. And this one has nice short rhizomes, so it should actually stay in the pot. This is one that Archie's original. This was a piece off of it, basically. I think he's trying to get rid of it. I don't know why, but I get the feeling he's trying to get rid of it. This is one rhizome with very long pieces between the bulbs, and I haven't got a clue if and when it's going to push a new growth out, so I just put the bulbs around the outside of the pot so that I didn't break the rhizome. But Archie's not even sure if he's got the right name on it, but it's Crassipes, we think. It needs a bloom to actually definitively say. So that's the bulbophyllums. Given my lack of knowledge 3 months ago, well, none of them have died. Well, I tell a lie, one did, and that was a poor plant when I got it, and it just didn't make it. But you know, you win some, you lose some, especially when you're buying from eBay and you can't see the physical plant. So there's an element of risk, but I've had so many good plants from that seller that one plant will not put me off. You know, you got one bad plant out of 15, that's not bad going. You know, you can get results worse than that buying from huge big nurseries. So I'm still happy with that seller, and I will still use that seller. That's what comes of being in a hurry. Back to this bulbophyllum, the one that hasn't got a tag. Lovely new growth coming out the front end. So this is the older part of the plant with the smaller pseudobulbs. This new growth aborted. Now I'll have to snip that off too in case any rot sets back into the plant. I don't think it will, it's dry up the base, this bit's not. So that was its last decent sized bulb, pushing out a nice new growth, and I've just spotted it's pushing out a new growth at the back end of the plant. Now that's good, because that's two leads at opposite ends, which both have room to grow. So that should pull that plant on nicely, providing they both succeed. There's no reason why they shouldn't. This one, I believe, was just damaged in transport and just failed. You know, it happens. But, yeah, two new growths. Ooh, I like that. It'd be nice if I knew what it was called, wouldn't it? I'll have to get myself a tag sorted out. But as it's the only one without a tag, it is easy to work out which one it is. Okay, yeah, see, you get in a hurry, you miss things. Well, this is one of my daughter's Dendrobium phalaenopsis hybrid, no ID and all that stuff again. One that the cats chewed a lot of the leaves off. But this has got a nice spike coming, that's good. Now this is typical, yeah, new cane comes up, grows its leaves, and then it pushes a spike out as a terminal spike. And a lot of people are under the impression that if you get a terminal spike, the rest of the cane is useless. Yeah, well, think again. That was the spike that it had when we got it. So it was in bloom, and that was chopped back, and it's growing a new one out the side. So it's not the end of the world on this type of plant to get a terminal spike. It might be on your Phalaenopsis, but not on a Dendrobium phalaenopsis. They can bloom out of nodes back down the cane. If they're nice and happy and vigorous, that's what they do. So that's going to have a spike there, hopefully. and hopefully another one there. And this one looks like it's actually going to be a bigger, stronger spike than the terminal spike, which is more typical for the plant's growth. So she'll be pleased with that, because we had a look round her plants yesterday but didn't get to these, ran out of time. So yeah, a couple more spikes to come. And this is one of my new acquisitions. This is the black antelope. Relatively new acquisition, but those roots have pushed on a lot since I got this plant. I think I've had it maybe 2-3 weeks, and they're pushing out strongly to go with those new canes. So I am hopeful that it'll establish itself nicely, and then I should get blooms on these 2 canes as they mature. It's a blooming size plant on the grounds that, yeah, it's done it once. So let's do it again, shall we? Soon. Now obviously those canes have got to mature. Sign of a mature cane on these types of plants is that you get a terminal leaf, and the paler colour of the new leaves turns to the same colour as the others. And you can sort of say, right, that cane is now mature and is capable of blooming. That's what normally happens. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Boy, is that going to be a spectacle. Blooms are stunning. And it's my only antelope type. So it's my only dendrobium of that category, class, whatever you want to call it. Looking forward to that, but that is good root growth. That is coming on nicely. Watering day, and early in the day. And I don't know about you lot, but early in the day, I'm clumsy. After so many hours, unpredictable, so many coffees, so many hours, the clumsiness is gone. I don't know what it is, but at the moment I'm still bordering on the clumsy stage. So I've just walked all over those leaves trying to get to that in my excitement. That's Shari Baby. And that was not there last time I watered the plant, because I've got 2 Shari Babies, and I went over every single growth and every leaf joint saying to myself, will you flipping bloom? Because you haven't done it for ages, but now it's going to do it. Perhaps it heard me. Do you threaten your plants? Just me then. But yeah, we have a Shari Baby spike. Woohoo! I've been looking forward to that fragrance for so long, because I haven't had it in here for so long. Good on you. I've been looking at this plant thinking, those bulbs are plenty big enough. Why won't you bloom? Pushing out new roots, left, right and centre. You know, come on, bloom. They must have heard me. That's good. I'm really pleased with that. Let's go and update my notes. I'm all excited now. Well, I got one coelogeny that's doing well. They're not my most successful genus, probably because they've been ignored for so long. But that is full of lovely new growths, some of which are getting roots down into the pot. And I've now got to make a decision. Do I disturb this plant to take advantage of getting pieces like that above some media to get the roots into some media, and again round here, look, hanging out the edge of the pot, or do I rely on the new growths in the middle of the pot to supply the root systems in the media to support those new growths through the rhizomes? Decisions. Seems a shame after so long sitting there not growing, and now it's bursting with life and I go and disturb it. Got a feeling I might just top the pot up and just put some new media up to the rim of the pot so that these roots are then either close to or actually in the media, and leave it in its pot. Let it get a good hold and then perhaps disturb it. Spoil it. But that's one coelogeny that's growing actively. Pleased with that one. That's Fimbriata. It's an autumn bloomer with a lovely sort of, they're a fawny browny colour with deep brown in the lip. They're very attractive and fragrant, but small. They're not large blooms. Some of the coelogenies have enormous blooms. Those in the large white category, like Cristata and things, and Moriana, if I ever see any. But at least this does bloom. You know, it had one bloom last year and a slug ate it. But it bloomed. And I think, you know, with the amount of growth I've got on here now, this autumn, that plant, I think, is going to put on a good show. Listening. We'll see. I'm the only orange in the grow room at the moment, but we have some. The kikis for them, the Stardust Firebird, blooms are nice. And this thing, unnamed. Several have given me some ideas, but you know, when you've got an unnamed hybrid, it's difficult to get a positive ID, and I'm happy that it just blooms nicely. You know, I don't need to know what it's called. It's not the important thing. The important thing is the new canes growing and the fact that it bloomed well. You know, what more can you ask? And that is a good blooming. They're lovely blooms. Lovely bright orange, cheerful. Yeah, and we got some new growths coming on behind for next time. Yeah, that's all you can ask for with dendrobiums of this type. Although some of them old canes have got to come off. Tatty looking thing. But, you know, this, if you ignored that part of the plant, this bit's good. That's last year's canes and this year's blooms. So, yeah, the two orange ones are looking good. Yeah. Stardust Firebird are very pretty blooms. It's not the easiest plant to grow well. It just chucks out kikis and becomes tatty looking. If you've got a good version of that with loads of new growths at the base and no kikis, let me know how you do it. But yeah, I'm pleased with the blooming on that. That's a good blooming on a plant that was quite weak and not very good last year. These canes are not full size, but they've all bloomed. And we've still got some buds unopened, so there'll be more to come to sustain its blooming. There's quite a few new buds actually not opened yet, so now all I need to know is how long those blooms last, because it had a couple of blooms on when I got it. I was attracted by its blooms, succumbed by the pretty flower instead of looking at the plant. I don't do that now. But yeah, it's come on well, and this year it should do a lot better with any luck, and then next year we should get an equally good blooming. That's what we aim for. Lovely, lovely flowers. Nice orange. And I know the camera doesn't show this orange very well. It comes out on film a paler colour than it actually is. This is actually quite a reasonable orange. It isn't all washed out and wishy-washy. It's actually quite good now the blooms have opened properly. And the veining in the lip is nice. A deep red veining on the lip. More pronounced in the hybrid. Yeah, in Stardust Firebird. More pronounced. So a more dynamic looking bloom. But yeah, two good ones. I don't very often show the Cattleyas that aren't in bloom, but this was one of the ones that, as far as I was concerned, the timing on the repot and getting it into the clay pot was probably about as good as it gets with Cattleyas. This is a no ID hybrid. None of these growths are going to bloom. That's just, this one could do, I suppose, but looking at the state of that sheath, it's unlikely. But you never know, Cattleyas do funny things. But the new roots are pushing on nicely down into that media, and a lot of the older roots didn't abort. So it's still got a root system that it produced back here somewhere. But what I'm looking at is that that's an eye that's definitely moving, and that's highly probable, and that is a possible. So potentially 3 new growths. Any more lurking around the other side? Not that I can see. But I'll be happy with 3 new growths after a repot. You know, because with a root system that's viable, the new growths will also do the same thing at some point. And this plant doesn't need disturbing now for years. Years and years. It can just sit there and grow. And if these 3 new growths come out this side of the plant, they've got all this space to grow into. And relatively short rhizomes, so they won't come to the edge of the pot, which means there's room for the following new growths. This really can stay in there for ages, and that's exactly what I want. What I am doing is failing in my plan. The idea with these in the clay pots, that they would, because they're going to dry fast, because they're in clay pots and, you know, there's air spaces and large chunky bark, they're going to dry quite quickly. So the idea was to water them more often. And at the moment, they're getting watered with the other pot plants on a, you know, a 6, maybe 7 day cycle. In this case, 8, because as I said, I've been delayed by the weekend. So I'm not sticking to my plan, and I now need to put these plants in a place where they're easily accessible without moving loads of plants, right at the front of a shelf, where I will remember that they need watering more often. And then they'll get their hydration and their feed on a more frequent basis. And that should push those new growths on. But this has lovely blooms. They're bright orange Cattleya type blooms, and reasonable sized. It was in bloom when I got it, and it hasn't bloomed since. But I'm hoping for great things from these new growths. As I said, it's highly unlikely that will bloom, but Cattleyas do some strange things and just suddenly decide to push buds up where you thought the top of the cane was dead. We'll see what happens, but yeah, that's coming on. The new roots that still haven't reached the media, they're not going brown, they're not losing their tips, so it's a happy plant, and it should establish well in that pot. Nice top growth on it, nice healthy leaves. Again, slightly grubby, that's from spray, but I might have a cleaning session out here one day, but God, is that tedious. Could just take them all outside and give them a good soak, I suppose, but not with the temperatures out there at the moment. Maybe later in the year I'll take them out and give them a good hose off, give the leaves a good wash. But anyway, I'm pleased with that one. And Harvey Annum has come back to grace us yet again. Almost a perpetual bloomer, this thing. Well, it is for me. And, you know, I mean, that's got to go back where it used to be now it's in bloom, because that greets me when I walk in the door. And that's a nice greeting first thing in the morning. And it's always got a succession. Whenever I look at this plant, there's a spike forming there. Only just in its embryo state. I can see some others in that state because I know the plant well, and they will push on. But coming up this cane, this will be the next one to bloom, probably followed by that one, and then there's another one tucked in there. So that cane's going to have 3 spikes on, and they'll go in succession. So after that one starts to fade, one of these two will pull in. So it's almost a perpetual bloomer. And then there's some embryo canes that are just nubbins at the moment that will push on in time. So I suspect this will be in bloom on and off for another 3, maybe 4 months. And then it might have a little rest. But what I could do with is some new growths down the base. But I'll leave it to do its thing. It's never failed yet. It just keeps going. Lovely. Wish it had a fragrance. You can't have everything. Got fluffy little frilly things, a very strange deep colour in the centre. Difficult to describe what that colour is. It's not real yellow. It's almost a greenish bronzy tinge, if you get the light right. But with frills all over it and a bright sunshine daffodil yellow, yeah, you can stay. And with a bit of creative shuffling things around, which I haven't really got time for, but worth it to get that back in its pride of place as I walk in the door, that's looking at me. And up with the nobelies that are still at it. I mean, there's quite a lot of blooms dropped off, a pile of them there. But then, you know, there's still blooms there, and there's still a few buds that have only recently opened, so they're going to still be there for a while. You know, they last quite a while, and then certainly Prima Donna, the yellow one, will produce more buds as the year goes on. That doesn't have an initial, well, it does have an initial spring flush, late winter, early spring, but then it produces more buds as the year goes on. So it will come back into bloom on and off as we go on. The other two not so much, but that one does. But yeah, it's Harvey Annum back where it belongs, in full view, rather than tucked away at the back of a shelf. I think I'll end on that. Wherever I go away, something opens. And this has been right above my head in what has been a 4-hour watering session because I was so far behind. And it was just sitting there above my head, open. And it's in the last section to be watered, so I've only just noticed it. This is a nice Tolumnia, 2 spikes, yeah? So a prolonged blooming period again because this spike's behind the one that's just opened. That's Tolumnia Sunset Pink. What a beauty. First time blooming for me on this one. Yep, that's a good thing to end on, isn't it? It's so delicate. The way that pink flushes across those that lower section is just, yeah, they're still up at the top of the favourites. Okay, I'll leave it at that for today, and I haven't got a clue what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Resting, probably. Having done driving Saturday, coach trip Sunday, which included driving yesterday to take my daughter home, and all day in the grow room today, sorting things out as a consequence of not being here. So I think tomorrow we will have a rest day. I might do a repot a bonsai or something leisurely, but we'll see how we go. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you've enjoyed snippets, because that's what these videos are about. They're just bits and pieces that I pick up as I'm going round. But I like it when I pick up something like that. Yeah, a way to end. See you again. Bye for now.